So one of the things that you got to learn is that there is what you actually need in this world and what you want. And those things actually are often very far apart and require significantly different resources. So, I often have said on this channel that most people, barring living in the far north, you could probably live in a tent, right? We can live with a bicycle and a tent and for the most part you would be okay. You could still eat whatever you want, but that entire cost of what it takes to live in a tent and to you know ride a bicycle is fairly inexpensive, which means that you can live very well, right? And for most people that is pretty it would not be a super comfortable life, but it would be an okay life. And that goes for almost any place around the world, that it's pretty insignificant what you actually need. Now, we forget that what we desire, what the sort of feelings inside that make you want to get something are a lot different than what you actually need to get by. And if you think about those differences, a nice sort of contrast between the two, if you look at um, U.S. Postal Service, it's not very fancy when you go in there, but it does the job, right? And it's not great, but it does the job. And if you compare that to what you really want, to something that's a really nice, comfortable experience, it gets there very quick. Something like FedEx, you have to pay a tremendous amount more to actually get there. And that's a pretty universal idea across the board. It might seem very easy to live in a tent and to ride a bicycle. I'm serious. I think most people could get away with that and live a decent life. And like you would have a little campfire and or like a little camp stove or something like that to cook your food, which is a huge chunk of the world's population still basically lives like that, other than in the far north. What you really need is some significant shelter, but for the most part, a large part of the world still lives a lot like that. And so we have to realize that you could live like that. And there's no reason why you shouldn't live like that. There's no reason why you can't live like that. There's nothing other than in your mind you've got these sort of set barriers in your mind of what you actually want and what you perceive as the adequate way of living. And once you deconstruct that, you start thinking in your head, wait a minute, it doesn't really matter. All of those kind of things are just social norms. They are what we believe that we need to believe that they are, right? Like living in a house and driving a car and having a white picket fence and all that kind of stuff is a beautiful dream, and it's a nice dream, right? I'm not saying that that is wrong, but what I'm saying is that it's a social construction in your head. And once you get away from that, once you sort of deconstruct that, you start to understand that, wait a minute, there's a lot that I can possibly do to change my situation. There's a huge difference between where I am and where I need to go to. And often what you need to do to really change your situation is to live very austerely, to take some money and invest for the long term. Like these kind of things are very simple. And that's on the cost side, right? That's a definitely one way that you could sort of think, is looking at all the ways that you can cut your costs in all possible ways, and to not be like afraid of that. Like living, why is it such a big thing that we have in our head? And I know you're gonna laugh at me, but why can't you live in your car? Right? Like, what is wrong with living in your car? There's nothing wrong with that. And once you come to that terms that it's okay, you can live in your car and have a decent job and all those kind of things, and do your thing. You could probably live okay, right? Like, and I'm not saying to do this forever, but in the meantime, you can do many things that allow you to get your life to go forward and to do some really cool things there. Now, on the revenue side, in terms of what you can bring in, there's not a lot you could do other than keep pushing and keep looking over the long term at what you can improve and do better in terms of finding positions and things like that. But that upward mobility part of it is an important part of sort of moving from place to place, of doing better. But ultimately, that's a choice to do that. That's a trade-off for you to actually spend some time to do that and to look for better jobs. So you might not want to do that, but that's okay, right? So what I'm saying here is to realize a lot of life, what we say is a fiction. It's made up stories that we think about in our mind. And we can do a lot to change our position if we simply just say, why not? It's okay if I live this way and have whatever, and I don't have to listen to what the social norms are. And that's an important part of doing innovative things, an important part of entrepreneurship, it's an important part of life and doing leadership, where you just stand up. You say, I'm going to do this because I think it's right for me, and I don't care what everybody else says. And that's the important thing for you. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.